Princess Vera stood on the grand balcony of the Kethrin Imperial Palace, watching the twin suns set over the crystal spires of her homeworld. At 8 feet tall with natural armor plating covering her blue-gray skin, she was considered small by Kethrin standards. Still, she commanded respect as the eldest daughter of Emperor Korax, ruler of the mighty Kethrin Empire that stretched across 12 star systems. Below in the palace gardens, she could see her husband Tom working among the flower beds. The sight made her smile, though she knew it would make her court nobles shake their heads in disapproval. Tom was human, barely 6 feet tall, with soft pink skin and no natural armor. To the Kethrins, he looked fragile, like something that might break if handled too roughly. "Princess," came a deep voice behind her. Vera turned to see General Voss, her father's military commander, approaching with his usual stern expression. His massive frame cast a shadow over her as his armored footsteps echoed on the marble floor. "What brings you here, General?" Vera asked, keeping her voice polite but distant. She knew Voss disapproved of her marriage to Tom. "Your father requests your presence in the war room," Voss said, his yellow eyes glancing toward the garden where Tom worked. "There are matters of state to discuss. Important matters that require Kethrin minds." The slight emphasis on Kethrin was not lost on Vera. She had heard similar comments countless times since announcing her engagement to Tom 2 years ago. Her people viewed humans as a curiosity, intelligent enough to be useful but lacking the physical strength and natural weapons that made a species truly powerful. "I will be there shortly," Vera replied. "And General, Tom is welcome to join these discussions. He is my husband and a skilled diplomat." Voss's mandibles clicked in what Vera recognized as barely contained disagreement. "Of course, Princess. Though I wonder if such delicate matters might be too intense for human sensibilities." After Voss departed, Vera made her way down to the gardens. The palace grounds were vast, filled with exotic plants from dozens of worlds within the Kethrin Empire. Tom had created a small section dedicated to earth plants, carefully tending to roses, sunflowers, and tomato vines that reminded him of home. She found him kneeling beside a row of herb plants, his gentle hands checking the soil moisture. He wore simple clothes, a light blue shirt and brown pants that looked almost comical next to the elaborate armor and robes worn by everyone else in the palace. His brown hair was slightly messy from his work, and dirt smudged his hands. "The sunset is beautiful tonight," Tom said without looking up, somehow sensing her presence. After 2 years of marriage, they had developed this comfortable awareness of each other. "Yes, it is," Vera agreed, settling onto a stone bench nearby. Even sitting, she was almost as tall as Tom when he stood. "Father wants to discuss state matters. Voss suggested you might find them too intense." Tom chuckled, a warm sound that never failed to make Vera feel at peace. "General Voss thinks humans are made of glass. I suppose I can't blame him. We must seem quite breakable to your people." This was something that had puzzled Vera since first meeting Tom during diplomatic negotiations between Earth and the Kethrin Empire. Humans had achieved faster-than-light travel and built impressive cities, yet they seemed so physically vulnerable. No natural armor, no claws, no enhanced strength. How had they survived long enough to reach the stars? "You are not breakable," Vera said firmly. "You are simply different." Tom stood and brushed dirt from his hands, smiling at her with those warm brown eyes that had first captured her attention. "Different is a kind way to put it. Most of your nobles think you married beneath your station. Most of my nobles are fools who judge worth only by how much weight someone can lift or how thick their armor plating grows," Vera replied with more heat than she intended. It was true that Tom seemed almost impossibly gentle compared to Kethrin males. Where her people solved disputes through displays of strength and dominance, Tom preferred long conversations and careful negotiation. Just last week, 2 young Kethrin nobles had gotten into an argument that nearly led to a formal combat challenge. Tom had stepped between them and somehow convinced both that they actually agreed with each other, turning potential enemies into allies with nothing but words. "Come," Vera said, standing and offering Tom her hand. Let us see what crisis requires our attention tonight. The walk to the war room took them through corridors lined with statues of great Kethran warriors and battle scenes depicting victories over various alien species. Tom always grew quiet in these hallways, and Vera sometimes caught him studying the artwork with an unreadable expression. The war room dominated the central tower of the palace, its walls covered with star maps and tactical displays showing the current positions of Kethran fleets. Emperor Korax stood at the center, his massive 12-foot frame making even his generals look small. His silver armor bore the scars of countless battles, and his presence filled the room with barely contained power. "Daughter," Korax rumbled as they entered. "Human Tom." The casual dismissal in her father's tone made Vera's jaw clench, but Tom simply nodded respectfully. "Emperor Korax. How may we serve?" "The Drex Confederacy has been making moves along our outer border systems," General Voss reported, activating a holographic display that showed ship movements near the mining colonies. "Our intelligence suggests they are planning something, but we cannot determine their target." Tom studied the display with interest while Vera examined the data. The Drex were savage raiders who lived for battle and conquest. Unlike the Kethrans, who fought with honor and clear objectives, the Drex seemed to enjoy destruction for its own sake. They had been a constant threat to the outer colonies for decades. "Their fleet movements do not follow any logical pattern," Admiral Crest observed. She was one of the few female military leaders in the Kethran hierarchy, having earned her position through a combination of brilliant tactics and ruthless efficiency. "It is possible they are simply conducting raids without a larger strategy." "The Drex always have a strategy," Tom said quietly, still studying the star map. "They just think differently than we do." Several of the Kethran officers exchanged glances. Vera noticed the slight emphasis Tom had placed on "we," including himself with the Kethrans rather than speaking as an outsider. "Explain," Emperor Korax commanded. "Kethran military doctrine focuses on honorable combat and clear objectives," Tom replied, his diplomatic training evident in his respectful tone. "The Drex see chaos itself as a weapon. They create confusion and fear, then strike where their enemies least expect it." "Chaos is the tool of cowards," General Voss growled. "Perhaps," Tom agreed. "But effective cowards can defeat brave warriors if those warriors cannot predict their actions." The discussion continued for another hour, with various scenarios debated and contingency plans developed. Throughout it all, Tom contributed thoughtful observations while never challenging Kethran authority directly. Vera found herself proud of how diplomatically he handled himself, even when some officers clearly viewed his presence as inappropriate. As they prepared to leave, Admiral Crest approached them. "Your husband has an interesting perspective on Drex tactics," she told Vera. "Most humans I have met think purely in terms of peaceful solutions." "Tom understands that peace sometimes requires strength to maintain it," Vera replied. "Indeed," Crest mused. "Though I wonder if he has ever seen true battle. War changes people, even the most gentle souls." That night, Vera and Tom walked through the palace gardens under the light of 3 moons. The air was warm and filled with the scent of night-blooming flowers that Tom had planted near their private quarters. "What did you think of the briefing?" Vera asked. "I think your military leaders are excellent at conventional warfare," Tom replied carefully. "The Drex are not conventional. Father respects your insights, even if he does not always show it." Tom stopped beside a fountain where earth goldfish swam among Kethran crystal formations. "Vera, there is something I should tell you about my time on Earth." She turned to face him, noting something different in his voice. "What is it?" "My work as a diplomat came after other service to my government," Tom said slowly. "Not all of it was peaceful." Before Vera could ask what he meant, an urgent alarm began sounding throughout the palace. Emergency lights bathed the gardens in harsh red illumination as palace guards rushed through the corridors. They hurried back inside to find chaos in the communications center. Admiral Crest was shouting orders while technicians worked frantically at their stations. "Report," Vera commanded. "The mining colony at Tertius Prime is under attack," Crest replied grimly. The Drex hit the orbital platforms first, then landed ground forces. They are taking civilians as prisoners rather than simply destroying the facilities. Emperor Corax arrived moments later, his armor clanking as he strode into the room. Status of the colony defenses? Overwhelmed, General Voss reported. The Drex brought a much larger force than our intelligence predicted. They are demanding to speak with Imperial leadership. A new transmission crackled to life, filling the room with static before a harsh Drex voice came through the speakers. Catherine Empire. We have taken your mining colony and many of your people. Among them is the young Princess Mira. If you wish to see any of them alive again, you will surrender the star systems of Altair, Vega, and Proxima within 72 hours. Any attempt to retake the colony will result in the execution of all prisoners. The transmission cut off, leaving the room in stunned silence. Vera felt the blood drain from her face as she realized her younger sister had been visiting the mining facilities as part of her administrative training. Mira, she whispered. Tom's hand found hers, offering silent support. But when she looked at his face, something had changed. The gentle diplomat was still there, but behind his eyes she glimpsed something cold and calculating that she had never seen before. The Drex had just made their greatest mistake. The Royal Council chamber had never felt so tense. Princess Vera sat at the massive stone table surrounded by her father's most trusted advisors, while holographic displays showed the devastating situation at Tertius Prime. The Drex had positioned their ships in a defensive formation around the mining colony, using the captured civilians as living shields. Emperor Corax's armored fist slammed against the table, making the entire structure shake. 72 hours to surrender 3 of our most valuable star systems. The Drex dare to make demands of the Catherine Empire. Father, we must consider all options, Vera said carefully. Mira and thousands of innocent civilians are trapped there. General Voss activated another display showing troop movements. Our nearest battle fleet is 6 hours away, but any direct assault would likely result in massive civilian casualties. The Drex have learned from previous encounters. They know we value honor and the protection of innocence. Admiral Crest leaned forward, studying the tactical situation. Their defensive position is nearly perfect. They have placed the prisoner compounds directly beneath their ship's weapons. Any orbital bombardment would eliminate our own people. Tom sat quietly beside Vera, his face calm but his eyes focused intently on the displays. She noticed his hands remained perfectly still, unlike the nervous fidgeting she had observed from other non-military personnel during crisis meetings. What are our intelligence assets in the region? Tom asked suddenly. The question surprised several of the Catherine officers. Admiral Crest glanced at Emperor Corax before answering. Limited. The Drex are paranoid about espionage. They execute anyone they suspect of gathering information. What about technical specifications of their ships and ground installations? Tom continued. Why do you ask? General Voss demanded, his tone suggesting he found the questions inappropriate. Tom met the general's challenging stare without flinching. Because if we cannot use conventional military force, we need to understand their vulnerabilities. Every system has weaknesses. This is military planning, Voss growled. Not diplomatic negotiation. General, Emperor Corax rumbled, his deep voice cutting through the tension. The human asks valid questions. Continue, Tom. For the next hour, Tom requested detailed information about Drex technology, their ship layouts, security protocols, and communication systems. His questions revealed a level of technical knowledge that surprised everyone in the room. Vera found herself studying her husband with new eyes as he discussed defensive systems and tactical weaknesses with the expertise of a trained military analyst. You seem to know quite a bit about military operations, Admiral Crest observed. I served my government in various capacities before becoming a diplomat, Tom replied simply. As the meeting continued, reports arrived from the mining colony. The Drex had released a few prisoners as a show of good faith, but the accounts they brought were disturbing. Princess Mira was being held in the Central Command Complex, treated as a valuable prize by the Drex leadership. They are broadcasting her capture throughout their territory, Admiral Crest reported grimly. Making her a symbol of their victory over the Kethran Empire. Vera felt rage building inside her chest. Her younger sister was only 22, kind and gentle like their mother had been. The thought of Mira in the hands of the savage Drex made her want to personally lead an assault fleet against their position. We cannot surrender 3 star systems, Emperor Corax declared. It would show weakness to every enemy of the Empire. But neither can we abandon innocent civilians to these butchers. There is a third option, Tom said quietly. The room fell silent. General Voss leaned back in his chair, his expression skeptical. What option would that be? A precision rescue operation. Small team, surgical strike, extract the prisoners without engaging the main Drex force. Impossible, Voss stated flatly. The Drex compound is heavily fortified. Even our best special forces would be detected and eliminated before reaching the prisoners. Tom's expression remained calm, but Vera noticed something shift in his posture. He sat straighter, and his voice carried a new authority when he spoke. General, with respect, your special forces are trained for honorable combat between warriors. This situation requires different skills. And I suppose you possess these skills? Voss asked mockingly. Yes, Tom replied simply. I do. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Emperor Corax spoke. Explain. Tom stood and approached the holographic display, manipulating the controls with practiced ease. Before my diplomatic career, I served with Earth Special Operations Command. Specifically, with a unit called Shadow Division. Admiral Crest straightened in her chair. I have heard of this unit. They were involved in ending the Earth Civil War. Among other conflicts, Tom confirmed. We specialized in hostage rescue, deep infiltration, and unconventional warfare. The kind of missions where failure meant civilian deaths and political disasters. Vera stared at her husband in shock. During their 2 years of marriage, Tom had never mentioned military service. She had assumed his careful, patient nature came from diplomatic training, not battlefield experience. The Earth Civil War lasted 8 years, Admiral Crest continued. Some of the tactics used by Earth forces were considered highly unorthodox by galactic standards. Unorthodox but effective, Tom agreed. When conventional military force would cause unacceptable casualties, Shadow Division provided alternatives. General Voss remained skeptical. Even if you possess such training, you are one human against an entire Drex battle group. It would be suicide. Not if properly supported, Tom replied. He manipulated the display to highlight specific areas around the mining colony. The Drex defensive strategy assumes a conventional assault. They are not prepared for infiltration and sabotage. Over the next hour, Tom outlined a plan that left everyone in the room stunned. His knowledge of military tactics, electronic warfare, and covert operations was extensive and detailed. He spoke of creating diversions, compromising enemy communications, and using psychological warfare to turn the Drex's own paranoia against them. You would need specialized equipment, Admiral Crest noted. Weapons and technology not available through normal diplomatic channels. Tom's smile was different than any expression Vera had seen from him before. It was cold and professional. I maintain contacts with my former unit. Equipment can be arranged. This is madness, General Voss protested. We are discussing sending one soft-skinned human against trained Drex warriors. General, Tom said, his voice carrying a deadly quiet that made everyone in the room pay attention. I have killed more enemies in single operations than most Kethran warriors see in their entire careers. The difference is that I prefer not to unless absolutely necessary. The statement hung in the air like a physical presence. Vera realized she was seeing her husband's true nature for the first time. The gentle gardener and patient diplomat had been real, but they were only part of the whole. Underneath lay something far more dangerous. Emperor Korak studied Tom for a long moment. You would risk your life for Catherine civilians? For my daughter? I would risk my life for Vera's family, Tom replied. And for innocent people who cannot protect themselves. If you fail, it means war with the Drex Confederacy, the Emperor warned. If I fail, you execute the standard military plan you would have used anyway, Tom countered. But if I succeed, you get your people back without losing 3-star systems or starting a war. The debate continued for another 2 hours, with various scenarios discussed and contingencies planned. Through it all, Tom demonstrated a level of strategic thinking that impressed even Admiral Crest. Finally, Emperor Korax made his decision. You have 48 hours, he told Tom. If you cannot extract the prisoners in that time, we implement conventional rescue operations regardless of casualties. As the meeting dispersed, Vera remained behind with Tom. The chamber felt enormous with just the two of them surrounded by holographic star maps. Why did you never tell me? She asked. Tom's expression softened back to the gentleman she had married. Because that part of my life was finished. I came to your world seeking peace, not war. But you are willing to return to it for Mira. I am willing to return to it for you, Tom corrected. Your sister means everything to you, which means she matters to me. Vera reached out and took his hand, noting calluses that she had always attributed to his gardening. Now she wondered what other scars he carried from his hidden past. How many people know about your military background? On your world? Just your intelligence services, and now your father's counsel. It was part of my security clearance when I requested permission to marry you. You requested permission? Tom smiled, and for a moment he was just her gentle husband again. I was not going to court a princess without going through proper channels. Your father's investigators were very thorough. And he approved anyway? He said the Kethran Empire could use an ally who understood both war and peace. That evening, Vera watched from their private quarters as several unmarked ships landed in the palace's secure docking bay. Tom had spent the afternoon making coded communications to contacts across the galaxy, speaking in languages and using technical terms she did not recognize. Now he was preparing to leave for what might be his final mission. The gentleman who tended flowers was putting on tactical gear and checking weapons that had arrived on those unmarked ships. Come back to me, Vera said as he prepared to depart. Tom kissed her forehead, his touch as gentle as always despite the lethal equipment he now carried. I promise. And I promise to bring your sister home. As his ship disappeared into the star-filled darkness, Vera realized she finally understood why humans had earned respect throughout the galaxy despite their apparent physical weaknesses. They possessed something that perhaps was more dangerous than natural armor or enhanced strength. They possessed the ability to become whatever the situation required, and the will to pay any price to protect those they loved. The Drex were about to learn why that made them far more dangerous than anyone realized. The Drex mining facility on Tertius Prime sprawled across the asteroid's surface like a metallic infection. From his concealed position on a nearby asteroid fragment, Tom studied the compound through advanced surveillance equipment his former colleagues had provided. The facility buzzed with activity as Drex warriors patrolled the perimeter, their confidence evident in their casual movements. Tom had spent the last 18 hours observing their patterns, mapping their security systems, and identifying key vulnerabilities. The Drex were excellent fighters but poor planners. They relied on intimidation and brute force rather than careful preparation, which would be their downfall. His communication device crackled softly. Shadow 1, this is Palace Command. Status report. Tom recognized Admiral Crest's voice. Despite her initial skepticism, she had become his primary liaison with Kethran forces. Target acquired. Security patterns mapped. Beginning Phase 1 in 30 minutes. Understood. Kethran fleet remains on standby as discussed. The plan Tom had developed was complex but elegant. Rather than attempt a direct assault, he would systematically dismantle the Drex operation from within, creating chaos and confusion before extracting the prisoners. The key was making the Drex defeat themselves through their own paranoia and poor discipline. Tom activated his stealth suit and began moving toward the facility's outer perimeter. The technology was human-made but enhanced with innovations from a dozen allied species. To Drex sensors, he would appear as nothing more than space debris. His first target was the communication relay station positioned on a rocky outcrop overlooking the main compound. The two Drex guards were focused on watching for approaching ships, not expecting threats from behind. Tom moved past them like a shadow, accessing their primary communication hub. Working quickly, he installed several small devices that would allow him to monitor and manipulate all Drex communications. More importantly, he uploaded a virus program designed by Earth's best cyber warfare specialists. The virus would remain dormant until activated, then systematically corrupt their tactical networks. Phase 1 complete, Tom moved to his second objective, the power distribution center. The Drex had built their facility around a central fusion reactor that provided energy for both their ships and ground installations. It was heavily guarded but poorly designed from a security standpoint. Tom had studied similar Drex installations during his military career. They always made the same mistakes, prioritizing impressive displays of force over practical defense. The power center had massive blast doors and armed checkpoints, but the maintenance tunnels beneath it were barely monitored. Crawling through the cramped service passages, Tom reached the reactor's control systems. Here he planted his most sophisticated device, a logic bomb that would appear to be a critical system failure. When triggered, it would shut down all non-essential systems while making the Drex believe their reactor was overloading. Shadow 1 to Palace Command, Tom whispered into his communicator. Phase 2 complete. Standing by for Phase 3. Copy that. Princess Vera sends her regards and reminds you to come home safely. Tom smiled grimly. Vera's message strengthened his resolve. The gentle princess had shown him what it meant to live for something beyond duty and survival. Now he would show her enemies what it meant to threaten that peace. Phase 3 required the most delicate timing. Tom made his way to the prisoner compound, where thermal scans had identified the locations of captured civilians. Princess Mira was being held in the command center itself, separated from the other prisoners as a special prize. Tom positioned himself in an abandoned storage facility with clear sight lines to both the prison compound and the command center. Then he activated his communication devices and began the psychological phase of his operation. Attention Drex Command, he broadcast on their primary frequency, using voice modulation software to sound like a Drex officer. We have detected unauthorized transmissions from Sector 7. Possible spy activity. Within minutes, Drex patrols were rushing toward the fabricated threat. Tom immediately followed with another false report, intruder alert in the reactor facility. Multiple contacts detected. The Drex response was exactly what Tom had predicted. Their commander began shouting orders, sending teams in multiple directions while demanding status reports from various stations. The disciplined defensive perimeter dissolved into confused movement as warriors rushed to investigate phantom threats. Tom waited until the chaos reached its peak, then activated the logic bomb in the power center. Emergency lights began flashing throughout the facility as non-critical systems shut down. To the Drex, it appeared their reactor was experiencing a catastrophic failure. All stations, emergency protocols, the Drex commander's voice roared over their communication system. Prepare for reactor evacuation. This was Tom's moment. While the Drex focused on the imaginary reactor crisis, he moved toward the prisoner compound. The guards had abandoned their posts to deal with the emergency, leaving only automated security systems that Tom's equipment could easily bypass. The imprisoned civilians were huddled together in a large holding area, their faces showing the strain of captivity. Tom appeared among them like a ghost, his stealth suit making him nearly invisible in the emergency lighting. I am here to get you out, he whispered to the nearest group. Follow my instructions exactly and stay quiet. The prisoners recognized him as human, and word spread quickly through the crowd. Tom led them through predetermined escape routes while the Drex continued to chase false alarms throughout the facility. His planning had created a window of opportunity, but it would not last long. The real challenge was reaching Princess Mira. The command center remained heavily guarded despite the chaos elsewhere. Tom would need to neutralize the guards without raising an alarm that might endanger the young princess. Moving through the facility's maintenance areas, Tom reached a position directly below the command center. Using equipment that could cut through metal with molecular precision, he created a small opening in the floor above. Through his surveillance equipment, he could see Princess Mira in a small holding cell, guarded by 4 Drex warriors. She appeared unharmed but frightened, her blue-gray skin pale with stress. Tom carefully studied the guard positions and movement patterns. These were elite Drex fighters, not easily fooled by distractions. He would need a different approach. Activating another of his prepared devices, Tom sent a false communication directly to the guards' personal communicators. The message appeared to come from their commander, ordering 3 of them to report to the reactor immediately for emergency duty. The guards hesitated, then 3 departed, leaving only 1 warrior watching Princess Mira. Tom waited several minutes to ensure they would not return quickly, then made his move. Rising silently through his prepared opening, Tom appeared behind the remaining guard. Before the Drex warrior could react, Tom applied a pressure point technique that rendered him unconscious without permanent harm. For all his lethal training, Tom preferred non-fatal solutions when possible. "Princess Mira," Tom whispered, approaching her cell with the access codes he had obtained from the guard's equipment. "I am Tom. Vera's husband. I am here to take you home." Myra's eyes widened with recognition and relief. "Tom. How did you get here?" "The facility is full of Drex warriors. They are currently busy chasing their own shadows," Tom replied, opening her cell. "But we need to move quickly before they realize what has happened." Leading Princess Mira through the same routes he had used for the other prisoners, Tom guided her to the extraction point where his ship waited in a concealed landing bay. The rescued civilians were already aboard, protected by automated defenses while Tom completed the mission. As they prepared to depart, Tom activated his final surprise for the Drex. The virus he had planted in their communication systems suddenly activated, corrupting their tactical networks and creating a cascade of system failures. The Drex would spend hours trying to determine what had happened and how extensive the damage was. Shadow 1 to Palace Command, Tom reported as his ship lifted off from the asteroid. "Package secured. All objectives accomplished. Returning to base." Admiral Crest's voice carried obvious relief. "Outstanding work, Shadow 1. The Emperor will want a full briefing upon your return." The journey back to Kethrin space took 6 hours, during which Tom gradually returned to his role as Princess Vera's gentle husband. The tactical gear was stored away, the weapons secured, and the cold professional demeanor replaced by warm concern for the rescued prisoners. When they arrived at the palace, Vera was waiting in the landing bay with medical teams and support staff. She embraced her sister with tears of joy, then turned to Tom with an expression he had never seen before. It was love mixed with something like awe. "How?" she asked simply. Very carefully, Tom replied with a slight smile. Later, in the debriefing with Emperor Corax and his senior staff, Admiral Crest presented a detailed analysis of the operation. "The Drex facility suffered complete tactical breakdown," she reported. "They are currently investigating massive security breaches and system failures. More importantly, they released footage of the rescue to their allies." "Why is that important?" General Voss asked. "Because it shows a single human infiltrating their most secure facility and extracting high-value prisoners without a single casualty," Admiral Crest explained. "The psychological impact on Drex morale will be significant." Emperor Corax studied Tom with new respect. "The galaxy will learn of this operation. How do you think other species will react to discovering human capabilities?" "Hopefully, they will choose diplomacy over conflict," Tom replied. "Most problems can be solved through peaceful negotiation." But it helps when people know that peaceful does not mean helpless. General Voss, who had questioned Tom's abilities from the beginning, spoke with grudging admiration. I misjudged human military potential. Your species fights differently than we expected. We fight only when we must, Tom corrected. But when we must, we fight to win. That evening, as Tom and Vera walked through their garden under the light of 3 moons, she finally understood her husband completely. He was indeed the gentle, peace-loving man she had married. But he was also something far more complex and dangerous when those he loved were threatened. The other nobles will never again call you harmless, Vera observed. Good, Tom replied, tending to a rose bush with the same careful attention he had always shown. Perhaps now they will understand that humans choose peace not from weakness, but from strength. Princess Mira had been saved, the Drex threat had been neutralized without war, and the galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about underestimating humanity. Most importantly, Vera now knew that her gentle husband possessed depths of capability that made him more formidable than any warrior in the Kethran Empire. The greatest predators, she realized, were often those who chose to be peaceful until someone gave them no other choice.